Sometimes in Dark Souls, you want to give up, you want to stop trying, you want to just put the game down and say it doesn't matter, right? So whether it's your first playthrough and you just stop at gargoyles, you just give up at gargoyles because you aren't feeling determined enough, you aren't feeling like you're learning quickly enough to succeed in your mission as a chosen undead, and ring the first bell behind the gargoyles boss fight. Whether it's that situation and it's bleak, hopeless, you might become nihilistic about Dark Souls and say it doesn't matter, I'm gonna give up, I'm not gonna try anymore. Maybe it's before Tara's demon, maybe you can't kill Asylum demon, who knows, maybe you're dying over and over to Lord Gwyn. You know, who knows what's going on. Or you're doing a no-hit run and you realize that, yeah, no-hit is something that's like very specific and really not important to my path. Even though I thought I really wanted to achieve this, even though at one point it was something very important, now it's not, nothing matters, I'm gonna give up. Right? So giving up, this nature of giving up, you know, refusing to try, refusing to learn, refusing to evolve and make better choices. This episode about nihilism, and optimistic nihilism, angelic nihilism. You know, it's a paradox, but Dark Souls is very much applicable to this. So, that being said, if you want to join the Discord server full of, you know, self-actualized chosen undeads, check out the Patreon $5 membership to join, check out the Twitch channel, and pay attention, concentrate. Yeah, kill Lord Gwyn and walk out with a dark ending. Don't give up, don't be a nihilist. It does matter, Dark Souls 1 is good.
To say that the Force works in mysterious ways is to admit one's ignorance. For any mystery can be solved through the application of knowledge and unrelenting effort.
Welcome to Monad of Creation, episode 20. This is a long overdue, yet eternally truthful, immutable concept I'm going to address, and has everything to do with awakening to reality and awakening to yourself to the fullest with unrelenting effort. Today's topic revolves around nihilism, specifically optimistic nihilism / angelic nihilism. Both terms portray the same encryption and meaning. That being said, the term nihilism on its own specifically refers to the ideas and philosophies that entail that life is meaningless, that life is hopeless, bleak, and therefore meaningless. There's no meaning, and nothing matters. What that ideology, that philosophy, those thoughts, nihilism, typically facilitate in the imbalanced being, in the non-transcended being, someone who is not self-actualized, someone who might not have holistic intelligence imbued within themselves. Nihilism facilitates ignoring, it facilitates, in some cases, harm towards sentient life. It definitely facilitates not trying, choosing choices, making decisions that don't create evolution or abundance. So nihilism in and of itself is a statement, and it truly is neutral. It's nothing matters. Right? So once someone starts believing in nihilistic ideas, it then falls back upon themselves to work with that knowledge, those ideas, those views, those philosophies. So in doing so, throwing optimistic nihilism or angelic nihilism in front of the term nihilism, implies a totally different philosophy in and of itself. Totally different. And that is what we'll be going over. So, what this podcast is about, and everyone who has listened in the past knows, it's about perception and self-actualization. Perception has to do with truth. Self-actualization, self-mastery has to do with your eternal self. However you want to describe that, your eternal self. There are many ways to talk about all of the topics I speak on here. And that being said, the concepts and ideas and topics we've talked about so far will lead someone down the path towards maybe feeling a little nihilistic about the world. And that is simply because this podcast's foundation, may I interject, reality's foundation is based in truth. All that is and all that ever has been, regardless of beings' perceptions, regardless of individual beings' ability or inability to be aware. So in the early episodes, we talked about awareness, all these types of things, sovereignty, perception, objective reality versus subjective reality. So once you've ingrained those things in your head and really looked at the world, really done some research, you've really learned about things, or maybe even just started paying attention well, you started concentrating well, March 4th, 2021, if you're on planet Earth and you're listening to this transmission, things for humanity in the aggregate as a whole are not looking too abundant or evolutionary. And if you're honest with yourself, and once you become totally honest with yourself and you unconditionally love things around you, beings around you, you unconditionally love all reality and yourself, you'll realize it's not very optimal. It's not optimal. It's not the nicest thing. the state of humanity as a whole, as an entire species. The entire planet is not evolving and abundantly choosing choices that facilitate freedom and evolution for the individuals in the collective of the human species. That also translates as there's no sovereign individualization in the aggregate based in unconditional love, which brings forth actual unity. That doesn't exist on this planet at all in the aggregate. Most beings want a savior, a crutch, a quick fix, something to make them blissfully happy, blissfully ignorantly happy. They want to ignore, they don't want to look at themselves in the mirror without some dogma enforcing or really justifying their ideas. And dogmas can look like anything. It's not just a frontal assault on religious dogma, i.e. the cultural religions that involve mommy daddy gods. This is also a full frontal assault on all illusion, and all dogmas are illusory. That being said, that is the worship of any set of ideas as the end all be all. The only way to do things, this is the arbiter of truth, my set of ideas, this set of ideas. Anything outside of that is wrong and I need to attack it. That is antithetical to being a genuine being if you act that way. And at this point, for the sake of this episode, I'm not going to spend time deep diving that really, really vital topic in and of itself. Believe what you will. So going forward, if you've actually looked at things with no bias, no dogma, no expectations for future events, be it 1 second ahead of you, or 2 years, or 100 years. No expectations, and when you have no expectations, you're also not assuming. If you're a very transcended being, and you're looking at things scientifically, true science, the actual scientific method, which is discovering and seeking the mysteries, the immutable eternal truths of reality. Scientifically, you're not holding expectations, you're not judging, you don't have any erroneous ideas about anything. You're in a state of neutrality and accurate perception. And then whatever you're running under that, hopefully it's unconditional love and power and strength. If you're doing that, if you're neutrally existing and accurately perceiving, you know things are bleak on this planet. So, the bleak nature of things, a bleak thing, something that is bleak, implies there is little to no hope. It actually really implies there's no hope. Bleak situations, hopeless situations. And the dynamic of hope means there's no way to know the future is going to be bright. There's no way to know the future is going to be abundant. There's no way to know the future is going to do this. So if there's no way in knowing, then what can you do? What can't you do? You cannot expect anything. You can't assume anything because you can't know. I don't know if humanity is going to awaken and just get along in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know if, less good, sure, I'll use the word good, less good things are going to happen. Or something actually very detrimental to the human species is going to happen. I have no way of telling. I do know a lot of detrimental things happen every day, but gargantuan, massive obliteration, I don't know. Gargantuan, massive abundance and evolution all of a sudden, I don't know. There's no way to tell. So I use the word I when I speak because I happen to be a human being right now. And that means I use what computes to other human beings. So I have no idea what's going to happen. So therefore I have no hope, because hope is based in knowing the future. And once you claim to know the future, once you claim to know what's going to happen, you're already extending your energy, you're extending your thoughts, which are energetic signatures. You're extending your thoughts into the future, making assumptions. You might think you know, you don't know. So even in a truly generative, beautiful reality system or planet, you still can't hope for anything. You just exist in the present moment awareness, right? So if you got present moment awareness on your side, you're not expecting, you're not assuming, and typically you're having pretty accurate awareness, so you're going to look at things objectively that are outside of you, and it's pretty bleak right now. Because the term bleak is not only there's no hope, but also things are not the best. They're not very nice, they're not pretty, they're ugly, messy, silly, ugly, all of it. Ugly, dark situations. The word dark is not a good word to use because dark things are also beautiful. Anyway, ugly, messy, disgusting situations that are also hopeless. That's a bleak situation. And, this is not to fixate on the external world, and we'll get into that in a minute. So reel you back in. This is not absolutely crushing transmission. So when things are bleak and you're perceiving things outside of you, you become sometimes a nihilist. And that might happen because the being who's believing that nothing matters, they're holding that thought form that nothing matters because of the bleak situation, the disgusting, ugly, hopeless situation that the external reality is in. So the external, it's bleak, it's hopeless, right? Everything outside of me, everything, that I am also one with, but yes, outside of me. Humanity as a whole, my government, my country, my family unit, my friend group, my job, my whatever. Plug in anything that's bleak and hopeless, disgusting, ugly. Sometimes that leads people to believe that nothing matters. Like, how does this happen to me? How can this happen to me? How can this happen to anyone? How can the state of the world be the way it is if things truly mattered? If things truly mattered, wouldn't things be a little better? A little more evolutionary and abundant? A little nicer. I'm not even going to go all the way to unconditionally loving, just nicer. A little nicer, right? So, why is everything around me bleak? Maybe nothing matters. So, bleak situations typically facilitate nihilistic thoughts, and pure nihilism often is running in beings who, yes, they have really good awareness and they're aware of things that are going on and truths, but those are typically the external truths, right? So, I can make a note on my notes right now. The external's rotting, right? External is rotting, the internal is up to you. And so when you become a nihilist, truly, you're at least base level thinking nothing matters, right? Well, this is what I like to say often. Nothing matters, yet everything does. Nothing matters, nothing is important, yet everything does matter, everything is important. That is a paradox, because those two statements are completely polar opposite, hence the yet. Nothing matters, yet everything does. So what does that mean? Alright? That truly means, the things outside of you, when you cannot control the things outside of you in a healthy way, due to the external circumstances of any situation overriding your capability to make change, nothing matters, yet everything does. You have to let go sometimes, but that's not to say become lukewarm and just go with the flow, become just completely zen, completely one with the force in a human body and just not care about anything. That even healthy nihilists, even healthy optimistic nihilists, healthy angelic nihilists, healthy nihilists happen to just be lukewarm and just just flowing with anything that comes their way. So that would be more of a neutral nihilist, and then neutral, middle pathers, and then the rotting, that's what I like to call it, the rotting nihilist. That is like the tried and true depiction of nihilism. You're a rotting being, nothing matters, so I don't matter. Nothing matters, so people don't matter. Nothing matters, so the world doesn't matter. Guess what that facilitates? That facilitates giving up and decaying. Giving up and decaying looks like a lot of things. Just giving up and destroying yourself. And often destroying yourself puts you into a mode of feeding off others, becoming emotional, not really striving towards your eternal self. Let me revise that. Absolutely not at all striving towards anything abundant, which also means you're absolutely not striving towards your eternal self and self-actualization. Definitely not helping others on top of that. If you're rotting nihilist, nothing matters, you don't matter, so just give up and decay. So that is very strong terminology, right? It's anything from, people harming themselves and others, with unjust use of force, which is violence, being violent towards themselves, being violent towards others, or just having, 1, 2, 3, 4 addictions, and just consuming and feeding off everything around them. You're not reining in their consciousness, their thoughts at all, using their mind at all, using their being, their potential, just feeding and being addicted. That is typically what happens with rotting nihilism. You're either just totally, lashing out or feeding off everything, being a parasite, and both those behaviors are parasitic. So you're rotting and everything around is rotting, So to avoid this, what do you do when you become nihilistic? Nothing matters, Everything is irrelevant, nothing matters. I'm just gonna be either one with reality and just go with it, and or become emotional and lack true feeling and not know myself, and then just feed and harm. It's not the best, right? It's to balance the bleak nature of truth and reality in this present moment on planet Earth. You counteract that with optimism, and optimistic nihilism is angelic nihilism, because nothing matters, and yet I am going to try my hardest in every situation I encounter. Every challenge, also entailing reality itself. Reality itself is a challenge. Life is a challenge. And right now, it's a bleak one for anyone listening to this on the planet. So, you're optimistic despite any circumstance. You are not ignorantly blissful, ignorantly looking, hoping for good things. You're not ignorant. You're optimistic. You calculate situations, with accurate perception, the true esoteric, philosophical, scientific method of discerning with strength and clarity the best, most optimal, most abundant choices you can make in any given situation. If the situation has, if the situation's most abundant choice is still not the best, well, it's the most abundant choice out of everything you're dealing with. You go with it. You do not ignore, run away. Beings who do this, they don't ignore, they don't run away, they don't hide, they don't cower, they don't complain, they don't fixate, right? The beings, consciousnesses that operate with optimistic consciousness in bleak situations, they still do the best they can. And that looks like, I want to reiterate, that looks like so many things in life. It looks like so many things. It's a very broad concept that can be plugged into anything. It can be plugged into grocery shopping, getting, discouraged that the ingredients you wanted weren't there, so what do? You fix it, you keep going, you keep going. You don't stagnate and you don't decay. You keep going. You figure out what ingredient you need for your pie you're making. Right? Or if you're faced with immense debt and foreclosure on the only property you had, I don't know. You're faced with homelessness. You can either you can do a lot of nasty things in these situations, or you can keep trying your hardest. That also, there's no one way. That looks like, embracing the homelessness and going off in the wilderness and surviving, okay? Or couch surfing with people you love and trust. Or trying your hardest to get a job and make more money and get rehired. Plug yourself back into that system, because that might be what you want to do and might be what you need to do to actually have the most abundant, situation going forward. So whether it's homelessness, not having anything, whether it's the store you're at lacking every ingredient you needed to make something, or it's the beings around you just feeding off your energy, feeding off your thoughts, your being, the totality of who you are. You're surrounded by narcissists, whether they know it or not. Sleeping narcissists or fully aware narcissists. Unconscious narcissists or totally conscious narcissists that knows what they're doing. What do? Do you give up and let them control you? Do you become a rotting nihilist? Oh, nothing matters, just gonna give up, be controlled forever. Or are you gonna be an angelic nihilist, optimistic nihilist? And do you know what? In saying this, there is no such thing as optimistic nihilism. Get that, 27 minutes into the episode. There is no such thing as optimistic nihilism. There is no such thing as angelic nihilism. It's just from a certain perspective, sure. Angelic, optimistic nihilism is proper behavior. You're functioning well. There's all these terms, it's just descriptors of evolutionary eternal behavior and principles. You know, when things aren't working out, when things are just not good, you know? Surely not optimal, but really, really disgusting. You have choices to make. Are your choices, once you hit a certain level of awareness, what are you going to do? In any situation. Whether it's a little more internal based regarding things and personal situations, or it's you're literally just letting the world around you and what's going on in your area or your planet, let's say, or your universal time matrix. You let anything outside of you destroy you, and you're fully aware of what's going on, and you let it destroy you, and you just destroy yourself. You're a rotting nihilist. You're letting the external and internal things destroy you. How do you fix that? That's honestly a story for another day. And I honestly, save that for talking to people personally, because you can offer some advice on that, and still you need to be there with the person talking to them, because someone who's a rotting nihilist, and they often don't have the tools to even perceive why someone would want to choose an abundant choice in a bleak, desolate, hopeless situation and a disgusting reality. Why even try? Why even try? Why even try? So I could even get into it, but for the ones more receptive, you simply, I could boil it down to make it simple and not very. I'm honest. It's not easy to understand and understand and get, but this is what happens. You really look yourself in the mirror. You look at what you are, the totality of it, with perception. You're honest with yourself. You don't lie to yourself. You look at yourself, the depths of yourself, the most disgusting, putrid aspects of you. You look at it, there's no shame and guilt involved. No guilt, no shame, none of that. You just look at it accurately, from neutrality. Try to, at least. And you say, what have I done? How can I make things better? Literally, the simplest way to put it, you start making free will choices. You start making choices and decisions that are the most abundant, the most prosperous and evolutionary choices in any given situation that you can make. And once you start doing that and being in the present now moment and transcending all the duality and polarized things within yourself and outside of yourself, you step into a state of, truly, eternally natural behavior. But down here, in here, whatever, where we are, it can be described as an angelic nihilism or optimistic, brutally honest nihilism. Because, nothing matters, yet everything does. If things matter too much, if you care about things way too much, things outside of you, you just get fixated on that, and you start selling yourself out. You start destroying yourself and expending yourself for things outside of you. So if you think things matter too much, you take things way too seriously, that becomes dualistic and polarized. And if nothing matters, what happens there is you don't think anything matters at all. So you stop trying, you stop evolving, and you stop growing. So the effect is the same. The effect is the same exact thing. If you think things matter too much, you're gonna destroy yourself. If you think things matter nothing at all, you're not gonna try. So if you understand that nothing matters, yet everything does, it's a transcendent, holistic perspective on the state of what's inside of you and outside of you. And I'd like to end it on everything is very important. And pay attention, concentrate to the best you can, be honest with yourself, don't lie to yourself. Book a clarity call if you have to on my Calendly, link in the description of this podcast episode. More things to come, check out the Instagram and the Patreon, and that's about it for angelic nihilism, without me fixating too heavily. Stay up, stay in.